Some of you know I used to live on the big island of Hawaii. 12 years of sun, salt air, tropical splendor, and the constant presence of something older and wilder than the resorts ever show you. Everyone there knows the legends of Pele, the goddess of volcanoes and fire. She's not just a story, she's a warning. They say she walks the roads near Mount Kīlauea, appearing as a slender young girl, or sometimes an old woman with long white hair. In both forms, always wearing a red muumuu. In whatever form, she is always accompanied by a large white dog. Driving or walking, if you stop, you will ask her if she needs help. And if you stop, you are warned. You're then bound to warn others about what's coming. Eruptions or earthquakes, and if you don't warn others, misfortune will find you. And then there's Pele's curse, the one that says anyone who takes lava rock or sand, which she views as her children from her island, will be cursed until they return them. The Volcano National Park gets packages from all over the world, with notes begging forgiveness. Tonight, I've got 2 stories sent to us at Night Feed, both from people who claim they met Pele and lived to warn the rest of us. This story is from my friend Lauren, who now lives in Ashland, Oregon. She lived on the Big Island for 20 years. That's long enough for the island to become a part of you, and for you to become a part of it. It's also long enough to learn that some stories aren't just stories, they're warnings. One of those is the legend of Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes. She's the creator and destroyer, the heartbeat under the lava rock. Locals say that sometimes before an eruption or earthquake, Pele appears along the roads near Kīlauea. She might look like a beautiful young girl with long straight black hair, or an old woman with long white hair. In either form, wearing a flowing, dark red muumuu, and both, always accompanied by a large white dog at their side. If you stop, you're supposed to help her, hear her warning, then warn others of what's coming. If you don't, or if you ignore her message, misfortune follows. Lauren had heard versions of this story dozens of times, but she'd never believed in the myth. After all, she wasn't Hawaiian, she was European. She believed in the gods and goddesses of her own culture who represent the natural world and natural law. She thought it would be quite far-fetched that she'd ever come close enough to see an Hawaiian goddess in visible form. Her view of the supernatural world was about to change. It was late, almost 10 o'clock, and Lauren was driving Route 200, also known as the Saddle Road, between Hilo and Kona near the Mauna Kea access road turn-off. The stretch where the landscape turns from jungle to open lava fields, where the sky feels massive and the wind cuts straight through you. A very desolate and surreal area. Lauren had been helping a friend fix her truck in Hilo. Although no mechanic, she has enough skills to get someone back on the road. Her friend had been stranded all day and she couldn't just leave her. By the time she got her moving again, the stars were out and the road was nearly empty. That part of the island is pitch black at night. No street lights, no houses, just the beam of your headlights, more stars than you ever thought possible, and where your imagination can decide to conjure up all sorts of chimeras in the shadows. Lauren was halfway across the island when she saw her, a figure at the right edge of the road, facing out toward the dark slopes of Mauna Kea. She was tiny, barely over 5 feet, with long snow-white hair that reached far below her waist, that glowed bright in the headlights. On her head, she wore a headband of dark red flowers. She wore a blood-red muumuu, and beside her, a large white dog. It sat perfectly still, its fur looking almost too clean, too pristine for the dusty road. Lauren slowed down. There were no other cars anywhere, no houses for miles, just an empty landscape. She said this about the scene. It made the hair on her arms rise, that it had a strong chill of fear that ran down the back of her neck. But living in the land of Aloha, you don't just leave someone standing in the middle of nowhere late at night, especially an elder. Lauren pulled over, opened her door, got out and said, "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need a ride?" The wind was loud up there on the saddle road. Lauren expected her to step closer so she could hear her. Instead, the dog and the woman turned, unnaturally slow. The eyes of the woman that locked on Lauren's looked like they had flames in them, not just from glowing and reflecting in the headlights, but actually golden fire. Then she swore. The world around them went silent. The wind stopped. The truck's engine shut down. Even the dog was still, its gaze also fixed on her with otherworldly human-like blue eyes, with its teeth visible, looking like a demonic grin. And then the woman said one thing in a hissing, whispering voice, just one, pointing at Lauren with a gnarled finger. "Warn them." Lauren opened her mouth to ask who, but in the blink of an eye there was a nanosecond of dark orange-reddish flash of flame. The woman and dog just disappeared, just vanished, gone. The spot where they'd stood was empty, but it looked burnt and smoky. The wind blew again. The truck's engine started up. The headlights shone straight through to the blackness of the road beyond, Lauren said. She froze for a moment, realizing in disbelief the surreal moment she just witnessed, still staring at the little wisps of smoke rising from where they had stood. Slipping back into her truck, her hands gripped the wheel so tight in fear her knuckles hurt. Then the adrenaline of panic and shock kicked in. She locked the doors, slammed the truck into gear, and drove, feeling that wave after wave of trembling terror. She didn't stop until she screeched to a halt at her cabin, barely missing her prize banana plants. It took 4 rum and cokes to calm her shaking for her to finally pass out. Her sleep was filled with fitful dreams of staring eyes of fire, of blue human-like eyes that didn't belong on a dog, of the dog's eerie grin, of flows of lava burning and devouring everything until dripping into the ocean, hissing and screaming. Later that night, just after midnight, which was May 4th, 2018, a 6.9 earthquake rattled the island. Not a big one, but big enough to wake Lauren from a horror-tormented sleep, feeling like a giant hand had gripped her cabin and shook it. 23 days later, fissures opened on Kīlauea East Rift Zone near Leilani Estates and Lanipuna Gardens subdivisions. Over 2,000 people were evacuated. Lava fountains lit up the night sky orange-red. Lava flows creeping slowly all the way to the coast were taking out houses, farms, tide pools, warm ponds, and vaporizing a lake before steaming violently into the ocean. Lauren told herself it was just a coincidence meeting the legendary spirit of Pele, with the damage and destruction of the earthquake that followed and the ensuing flow of molten rock. She tried to make herself believe that she'd seen some poor stranded hiker in strange clothes, her mind filling in the rest. Or was it some kind of hallucination due to fatigue and altitude? Either way, the encounter left a searing scar in her head that couldn't just be written off no matter what her mind tried to do. But the fiery eyes and the woman saying "warn them" haunted her. She never told anyone to be careful or watch for lava or prepare for an earthquake. She didn't warn anyone. After all, she didn't have much sleep before the earthquake hit, and she sure wasn't going to run around Waimea late at night screaming warnings, as that would be a one-way ticket to a padded room. Instead, after the earthquake, that's when the strange things started happening. First was the smell. Faint at first, then stronger. Sulfur, rotten eggs. You smell it often on the island near volcanic vents, but this was different. It wasn't outside, it was in her cabin, in her bedroom. Then she started finding black sand in her shoes, not the normal, coarse beach kind. This was the fine, glittering sand from the volcanic black sand beaches. She hadn't been near one in months. After that, volcanic Pele's hair and tears started to appear outside her cabin, on her walkway and porch. The last straw, she said, was waking up seeing just inches from her face, a smear of volcanic ash across her other pillow on her bed with a faint handprint. That, she said, extremely creeped her out. She started to feel for her safety, as she lived alone and had nobody to protect her. Her husband was back in Ashland dealing with his family's business. Lauren left the island soon after, packed what she could, moved to Ashland to rejoin her husband. Didn't look back. Sometimes at night, she still has nightmares about pulling over on the saddle road, about getting out of her truck and asking, "What should I tell them?" But then waking in a cold sweat, remembering that preternatural look in both Pele and her dog's eyes, that impossible stillness, the quietness, and the slow way she and the dog had moved, how she pointed at her, how they just vanished, the burnt spot they left. So now she's telling us, if you ever find yourself driving a lonely road on the Big Island at night and you see a woman in red with a large white dog, you stop, you listen, and you do whatever she tells you. If you've ever been to the Big Island, you've probably heard the warnings about Pele's curse. The short version? Don't take anything volcanic from the island, no rocks or sand, because if you do, you're not just stealing from the land, you're stealing from Pele herself, and she's vicious. She'll take something back. Every year, the Volcano National Park receives hundreds of small packages in the mail, containing rocks and sand, each one wrapped carefully with a note that almost always says the same thing. Please return this to Pele. I'm sorry. I didn't know. This next story was sent to Night Feed by someone who didn't just hear the warning, they ignored it. The email came from a woman named Jackie. She wrote that she and her husband Dino had gone to the Big Island for their honeymoon a couple years ago. They weren't volcano people at first. They'd planned beaches, snorkeling, and Mai Tais, but once they took a tour to Volcanoes National Park, they were hooked. They hiked the sulfur banks, walked the lava fields, explored the lava tubes, even got close enough to feel the heat radiating from old flows. And somewhere along the trail, Dino bent down and picked up a smooth black piece of lava rock. It was glossy, shaped almost like a teardrop. We found out later it was called Pele's Tears. He held it up and said, "Wow, this is cool. This is coming home with us." Jackie said she remembered the tour guide's words that day. "Don't take anything volcanic from the park," he said seriously. She laughed and asked him why. He said, "Because the goddess Pele's curse will get you. Everything volcanic belongs to her. If you take anything, she will follow you and take revenge." Jackie laughed again, nervously, not knowing quite what to make of this information or if the man was being serious or not. When Dino packed his bag to head back to Portland, Oregon, he put the rock in his checked suitcase. And that's when things started to go very wrong. The first sign was the crappy plane ride back, turbulence the whole way, a tray of food dropped onto his lap, an extremely loud baby crying, all chalked up to bad luck. The second sign was the photographs. Every single picture they'd taken in Hawaii came out distorted, faces blurred, skin tones washed out, sometimes with a faint shape of what looked like a young girl, and sometimes an old woman looking stern in every picture. The third sign was they started fighting. Jackie swore they'd never argued much before, but now it was constant. Over nothing. Little things became explosive. Then the nightmares began. Jackie wrote, Every night I'd start to feel hot. I'd see an old woman in a dark maroon dress with long white hair at the end of my bed, glaring with eyes that looked like tiny flames. She'd have a ring of what looked like dark flowers on her head, but always she had a large white dog beside her, and the dog would also glare at me with blue eyes that looked human, lips curling, teeth showing, but no sound came out. It was like it was giving me an evil grin. The woman would then approach me very slowly. I would start to feel hotter and wet with sweat. She'd touch me on my forehead. My dream would explode with lava, waking me screaming. My bed would be drenched in sweat with the feeling of an intense fever. Dino said he had different dreams. His were about heat and pressure, of being back in Hawaii, the feeling of standing on thin ground while something massive moved beneath him. He said that he would see a young girl with irresistible beauty, with the same dress, headpiece, and white dog standing in a lava flow, beckoning him to come in. He'd refused, and in a preternatural flash, both the girl and the dog were next him. The heat was unbearable. The ground moved and rumbled. He could feel the pressure and heat rise. The ground opened up and the three fell into a lava pool, waking him thrashing in a sweat-drenched bed. 2 weeks later, they woke to find a thin dusting of black grit across their kitchen counter. Jackie touched it and felt a chill. It looked like volcanic ash. They had no idea how it got there. The next day, Dino's car battery was dead. He opened the hood and his battery was covered in volcanic Pele's hair. Then both of their phones refused to turn on, and their apartment started smelling faintly of sulfur. Jackie started researching Pele's curse. She read story after story from people who had mailed rocks and sand back to Hawaii, begging forgiveness. Most of them claimed their bad luck or ill health stopped soon after. So she hurriedly boxed up the lava rock, wrote a note, "I'm sorry, please forgive me," and sent it back to the Volcano National Park. For a couple of days, things were quiet. Then Dino got sick. It started as a cough, but it quickly turned into something far worse: fever, exhaustion, and the strangest symptom of all. He'd cough up black specks. The doctors ran tests, but everything came back normal. No infection, no illness they could name. And still, Dino's strength faded. One night, Jackie woke to find him standing at the window, staring out at the city. His lips were moving, but no sound came out. When she touched his shoulder, he turned slowly, and his eyes looked distant and quite unfocused. He whispered, "She came for what's hers." He then went back to bed like nothing had happened. Dino recovered very slowly. He almost died. The doctors were calling it respiratory failure on the report, but Jackie said no one could explain the diagnosis or the black grit she kept finding on the bed sheets. She ended her email with this: "Don't take anything from Pele. Even if you give it back, she might come to collect the interest. And if she does, you won't see her coming. And just so you know, Jackie sent her story to us from a library computer. She doesn't keep a phone anymore, and she's moved twice since Dino's health returned. She says she still sees the old woman in the red dress sometimes, standing across the street, watching. Dino would see the young girl sometimes grinning with eyes of flame in his rearview mirror. He'd look around and the back seat would be empty. If you're listening to this and planning a trip to Hawaii, take nothing. Leave with only what you brought, because the island will never forget, and neither will Pele." Hey, Kira here. If you like these stories and would like to hear more, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.